First Among Equals podcast. I'm here. I'm OG Lonnie La Quetzal here with the OG Germ-Izm. How you doing today?
Good. How are you guys?
Wonderful. I'm also here with the boy Genius on the ones and twos. So I'm really excited to have you here. I actually asked you specifically to come here because I just think the shit that you're doing is so legit for a really long time. I wanted to say that the whole graph world now is completely, it's changed so much.
Yeah.
And I think that the stuff that you do is, I mean, it's the combination of the old school kind of mixed with like the pop, you got like that pop art vibe going on, and I just wanted to catch up with you and see like where you were at and
yeah. Well, no, definitely. With as far as with graph and the whole style, that's where my style comes from. You know what I'm saying? Originally, like being a graph head and like or graffiti writer in my teen days till now, it's just like my work that I'm doing now just definitely reflects that whole like urban feel from back in the days, you know.
Well, yours now definitely has a level of professionalism. I feel like it's definitely elevated because you could put your artwork anywhere, and I think a lot of people it can be more accepted because it's a lot of clean. You have a lot of clean work. It's all your shit's clean, and the colors you're using are really vibrant, and I really appreciate the process that you have come to. So I guess I'm asking you, how did you kind of get to where you are now in terms of what you're working on and sort of the struggles with that?
So pretty much, so I've been drawing since I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And in my teen days, I was a graffiti writer until like, maybe my early 20s. Mm-hmm. And then I got into graphic design. And I taught myself graphics. Well, I'll rewind a little bit, actually. So what happened was I was one of the first jobs I had out of high school or after high school was at a local clothing store that sold stuff. It was like early 90s.
What was in the store?
It was called Lunatics. It was over on Beverly Boulevard in Montebello.
Oh, okay. See, I wasn't over there. What year was that?
It was like early 90s, like maybe late 80s, early 90s.
Okay, yeah.
And they used to cater to like tag bangers or rave clothes at the time, you know what I'm saying? Like all that stuff, like all like original, like Fresh Jive, Clobber, like Stussy, all that streetwear, like 187 Huda.
Yeah.
All these different brands. They used to sell that there, but we also used to like paint the whole shop, like murals outside, inside, whatever. So working there, I used to see all these amazing T-shirt graphics, and I was like, man, this is dope. And not to mention like all the dope rave flyers that were like super clean and everything, and I admire all this stuff, and I was like, man, like how do I paint like this? Like that's dope. Like I don't know nothing
like
about
that process.
What is it like, and then later I find out that it's computer graphics or graphic design. And I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know nothing about computers, So at the time,
you were actually, that's like really on the cusp of like that whole graphic design movement. Because before that, I feel like, I mean, you're talking specifically as in a designer mode, or like as a graph writer, like a tagger, throwing pieces.
Well, no, no, not as a graphic
Were you
designer.
Doing like throw ups and random stuff?
Everything.
Like that?
I was like all around like graffiti writer. I used to tag. I used to hit up like buses. RTD was my thing. Like I was like up on every like 18 bus, like all going down Whittier all the way to downtown. I used to hit up all the graffiti yards. I used to be from all the crews.
Yeah.
And then that whole like tag banging thing happened or whatever, and it was just like. And that's what kind of turned me off about it, because like at the time I just wanted to paint.
And at that point you had to make that choice. It was like, are you going to keep doing this and you're going to have to like be a part of this lifestyle?
Oh yeah.
Because you needed to fucking watch yourself, and it just became a whole gang thing.
Well, that was the thing. Like I mean, like
art. Yeah.
So in those days, like I had like all of my homies who were like all gangbangers. Actually, they were not all gangbangers. It was like my whole crew or my whole group of friends. They were all like versatile. Like they had like all the cholos. They had like the ravers,
the different sects.
I had like my best friend. My best friend was like a rude boy punk. You know what I'm saying? And then we had like the Disco Biscuits, all that stuff or whatever. It was a pretty good mix, at the time. And I was like a hip hop hippie, It was like I like my classic rock, I like my old school hip hop, and it was all graffiti writing all the time. And all I wanted to do was paint. But the way I stumbled on to graphics at the time was like I was admiring all of these like rave flyers, all with all these cool colors, all these sharp lines, really psychedelic, you know,
Yeah, for sure.
and all these cool like t-shirts and t-shirt brands at the time. And I was like, man, how do they do this? I want to paint like that. Not knowing that, you know, oh, maybe I can get my sketches or my ink drawings as clean as this or whatever. And so little by little, you know, I was working at that store. I started going to some of the trade shows, you know, like at the time it was, I think it was Action Sport Retailer in San Diego, which is like ASR show, the 432F show.
Wow.
It's similar like to the conventions like the Agenda, or the Magic Show, you know. So there, you know, checking out other brands and checking out their catalogs and everything. I ended up just collecting a whole like reference library of all these like graphics, you know, not knowing that this is graphic design, you know what I'm saying? And then at the same time, I had a friend that worked at Kinko's.
Okay.
And he worked graveyard shift, so he would always
come up.
He'd always call me, yeah. So at the time we were doing, you know, it was like house party stuff, you know, party crew days, and so we were. Before then, like somebody would develop a little flyer and they would make copies there, and we started. So that's what sparked the whole thing. Was one day my friend from Kinko's, he's like, let's make some posters. All right, cool. We make Xerox copies of all these different, you know, things we like, Herb magazine, whatever, you know, High Time magazine, stuff like that.
All the designs.
Cool shit from back then, you know.
Yeah.
And then one day he was like, oh, you know what? Why don't you get on the computer and make your name really
whip
big?
something up.
Yeah, and I was like, well, what the fuck is a computer? And I didn't, not like that.
What?
But he's like, get on this, and he's like, yeah. He's like,
no, yeah.
He's like, check this out, and he was just like, just try this, and I was like, wow, that's dope. I was like, okay, so little by little I started like playing around with it. I'm not even kidding. So for a whole year, I worked during the day, and then at night I'd go over there and just spend the whole night there.
Oh, it sounds like so much fun though.
Teaching myself like graphics, like okay, like Photoshop, you know, Illustrator, freehand, whatever the program was, and it was like I taught myself graphics, you know, and what sparked the whole thing, it was like the whole streetwear movement was. One of the brands that I met at one of the shows in San Diego, he happened to be making like a little catalog or something like working on some kind of I don't know, a price list or whatever there for his brand, and he recognized me from the show. He's like, hey, aren't you Germ or whatever? And I met him and whatever, and reintroduced myself. And he's like, oh, what are you doing here? And I'm just like, I don't know, I'm doing graphics. He's like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, let me see what you're working on. He's like, oh, cool. Can you help me out with like a little like price list or a little like line sheet?
Okay.
And I was like, sure. And he like broke me off, and I was like, okay, cool. And so I started helping him out with some stuff. And like a few months later, he offered me a job doing graphics, and he bought like all the equipment, whatever we needed. Invited me to work with him in the studio.
Story.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, that was like my first like graphic design job, and it was like my early 20s.
Wow.
And we worked out of the brewery in downtown. He had a studio there, so I worked with him for a few years.
I love the brewery, and that was when the brewery actually had like a bunch of artists.
Yeah.
And it wasn't trendy like...
No.
It was just a bunch of kids with money.
It was before that.
No, yeah. I know. I remember. I used to go to the brewery art walks when they were actually all artists, and they were working artists there. And they weren't just lost.
Yeah, it wasn't like it was now.
No, it's a completely different thing now.
But anyway, that kind of like sparked my whole thing, and it was just from there, it was like I was learning and getting paid to learn and work, and then I helped him develop like his brand and a few other brands, and I even started my own brand working there.
Really?
Yeah, I got to travel and did a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
So what at that time was the brand that you were?
So I worked with him. He had a brand. His name was Julian, and he had a brand called Street Smart.
Okay.
And it was like big in the hip hop scene, like the underground hip hop scene back then. When like I'm talking like hip hop shop days.
Okay.
So some of his artwork was by like Hex and a couple of other like known artists. And so I got to work on some of their stuff through him, and then with that I ended up like developing my own brand. It's called Top Nation. And that was my whole thing, was like represent all elements, you know, and it was just
all elements of hip hop.
Yeah, totally. And it sounds cheesy now, but back then it was like that was the shit,
I was like,
you know?
I was all about the elements.
Yeah.
But okay, because I remember the elements. I felt like there were more elements, but there was always the triangle. But then there was
it was like the four. For me, it's always been like the four elements. It's just like graffiti writing, MCing, breakdancing, and DJing. You know, and but yeah, I mean,
I love it. Did you ever go to the club Elements?
No.
All right, I was like, it was on Melrose. Old school.
But
it was all about, it was elements.
Yeah,
that was the word back then. It
I'm
was
sure.
Like, anyways, yeah, so bad. Sorry.
But anyway, no, with him, I got to travel. It was like the first time I ever flew on a plane.
How exciting.
And I got to go to Japan. We went to Tokyo.
Oh my God.
And with him, I must have went to Tokyo about maybe 6 times. And it was just because he had one of his biggest distributors was out there. And every time the Japanese would come,
Japanese always know though, bro.
Oh yeah, no, they're fanatics. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they're all about
it. The lifestyle out there was like they were down like 100%. Like they knew shit that I didn't even know. You know, it's just like they want the backstory for.
They want to understand.
Yeah.
They want to understand from the beginning what it was all about.
Yeah.
I have such a tremendous respect for like all the Japanese people who like will suddenly. Yeah, exactly. They'll suddenly just like focus on a certain genre, a certain style from here, and then they just like create that in their whole lives and stuff. Anyways, yeah. So go to Japan. We're in Japan.
Yeah, no. So anyway, no, that was a dope experience because I got to meet a lot of the distributors and a lot of the Japanese guys that were doing business with my boss at the time, and he was kind of over it by that time already.
Okay.
He was just like, you know what, like I've gone to Japan so many times, like I entertain like all the Japanese when they come out here and they take care of me when I go over there. He's like, Germ, like I need you to like entertain these guys when they come into town. And I was like, yeah, sure, like I'll take them wherever they want to go or whatever.
Crazy experience that must have.
So with me kind of entertaining them and taking them to the clubs, the bars, or whatever, or just out on the town or whatever, they would do the same when I'd go out there, and they would take care of everything, and they like
so
put
when
me
I
up.
go to Japan.
Yeah, well, no, it's not like that anymore.
I know, just like
it's not like that anymore. But it was a dope experience though, because I got to see how nice it was out there, how nice the people are, how hospitable they are, and it was a totally different experience. Like one of the first times I went out there, it was just I felt like I was in the future. I felt like Blade Runner. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then everything was like nice and bright, nice and clean, like no pollution, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember flying back home and landing at LAX, and it was just like, damn, it's so gray and ugly here. Like I want to go back. I want to stay over there.
It's so funny when you come back from somewhere that like the filter is different.
Yeah.
Like your screen has been changed. Like your whole. I don't even know. It's like
it must
crazy.
It must always be like that because, and I'm sure I don't know if you get it. Like when you went to Cuba or you were just in Mexico.
Yeah.
When we were in Cancun last year.
Yeah.
And it was so dope. We went out there, you know, for a whole week. And everything, like everybody was so nice, you know, the weather was amazing, and then we came back here and it was just like, eesh.
Well, and I think it's also that like you're living a fantasy because you're on vacation.
True.
So it's a limited amount of time, and you're coming through a screen of being excited to try new things. Everything is new. All the people are new. It's sort of like psychologically, you know, you're leaving. It's kind of zero fucks. Like you're there. Nobody knows you. It's a freedom that you have.
Yeah, true.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you come back and it's coming back to the reality of all the responsibilities and sort of the normality and the daily sort of reminder of who you are here. Which is not a bad thing, but it's also like it's nice to be someone else that no one knows.
Yeah.
Or do things that you would not normally do.
Yeah,
so I totally get it. And I think that but I think Japan, I mean, just stylistically, I could see what you mean by like the cleanse, like how clean it is and the organization. It's just culturally so different.
Yeah, it is.
The scope of how they perceive the world and in everyday activities, and I don't know. I just understand what you mean.
Yeah,
by that.
it's so different. But what I was saying about them being like fanatics about everything. So we went out there for a Lowrider Super Show in Tokyo, right?
What?
And
that's crazy.
Yeah, it was dope. It was real dope. And we went out there, and I took a rap group from out here to perform. They were like the main act, and
what was the group?
It was Browntown Looters at the time. We also took the Mexicans, and we took a couple other groups. I think Tumex. We took him out there.
Wow.
These are all different times, right?
Yeah.
And so we went out there, and it's a trip because we landed there at night. We missed our flight here.
Okay.
We ended up taking a later flight. We landed there at night, and I remember it being really cold. And I'm not used to the weather out there. You know, I should have. It's different now. This is like over 15 or 20 years ago. You know what I'm saying? You don't have the internet. You don't have like you can't just get on your phone and be like, oh, the weather is this cold over there. It's gonna be this. No, it was just like so. It's like you know, it was always hot and humid or super cold. So we got there at night, and I remember it being pretty chilly. But like the next morning, one of the guys in the group called me on my on the room phone or whatever. He's like, "Hey, Germ," he's like, "Dude," he's like, "Look outside," and I'm like, "What?" Like what? He's like, "Well, look outside." And I'm like, really? And I remember just like, at the time you can open the windows there. And I opened the curtains and I opened the window and my window blew open. And it was like the whole city was white.
Wow.
It was snowing. This is the biggest snowflakes I've ever seen.
Wow.
And it was like, snowflakes were like this big and it was all coming in my room. I was like, I had to like close it. I was like,
that's
fuck.
so crazy.
I was like, I didn't prepare for this.
I didn't prepare for this. Oh, gotta get my swag.
I remember going to the convention center out there, and all the lowriders were like lined up because they were doing sound check, all this stuff. And, and at the time, I was just like, I wasn't their manager, but I guess they were looking at me for all of their answers or whatever, you know. And I didn't know Japanese, but I knew how to kind of
figured out like
you know, a little broken Japanese.
And back then there was no translator on your phone.
No,
there
not
was
at
no
all.
phones like that.
So it was just like I had to like, you know, kind of like with the promoters of the show and these guys, I had to like situate everything, but I remember like vividly. I remember all the lowriders were lined up. They're like checking in or registering to get into the arena.
Yeah.
Or the convention center or whatever it was, and I remember looking. There was a huge like roll up door where all these lowriders were coming in, right, and the sky out there, or just looking out there, it was snowing so hard it looked like static on your TV. Just looking out looking out that roll-up door, and then all these lowriders are still coming in, like covered in snow inside the convention center.
Yeah, like those old TVs.
Yeah, and it looked like it was kind of like you could see it like at an angle. I'm like,
wow.
damn. Yeah,
that's such a neat image.
Yeah, so that was a cool experience.
So, from that whole sort of experience starting off, and that was kind of the beginning of your launching to
as a graphic designer.
Yeah.
Yes. So. Back to the original question.
Yeah.
So then after that job, I started working with a few different other like clothing companies or licensing companies and merchandise companies, or even just screen printers in general. And I started building up my portfolio, you know. And
did you understand?
Building on my resume.
Sorry, did you understand your intent at the time, or were you just kind of going along? And
no, not at all. I mean, I didn't go to school for graphics. I mean, I barely went to ELAC for a few years. You know what I'm saying? And it was just like I didn't know what to expect or even how to price anything. It was just like whatever I was happy with at the time, just to kind of, you know, get it going. That's what I would charge, you know. But I started like getting different accounts, and each account would get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they would offer me jobs, and it was just I started doing a lot of stuff for a lot of different bands and working with tour merchandisers. So cool. And back then it was like mid 90s, and I was working with this merchandiser that was doing a lot of stuff with bands from the 80s and the 70s and all these different type of bands, one of them being Culture Club.
Okay.
And if you see my work, you've seen that I did some collabs with Boy George.
Yeah.
So
actually, yeah.
So I got to work on a ton of their merchandise. I started working on
I never realized that the artwork had reflected what you had.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that you were.
So I worked on all of their T-shirts, all their like what is it?
Oh, it's amazing.
Tour books or tour catalogs or whatever, you know, these brochures and everything, and even like VIP passes. I was doing all this stuff, and then I started working on all these. Like concert posters, you know, like, and that was like that working on the concert posters, these like limited edition, signed and numbered, screen printed tour posters for all these bands.
Great experience.
That's what kind of sparked the whole thing
with you,
with all the pop art and all the prints and the pieces that I'm doing now, because it was just like I remember doing all these different had a collection of all the prints that I did for all these different bands, and I never had an art show. I never showed any of my work or whatever. And one day, there was an opportunity for me to show some of my work, and so I had a bunch of my posters that I worked on framed, and I showed them at this little show, and that was like my first like official little art show. You know, it was probably like 12 posters. You know, had them framed, and it was like from Boy George, Stan Ridgway from Walla Voodoo. Oh man, what was off the top of my head? I don't remember some of the bands, but it was Nina Hagen. A bunch of different bands, and I remember Stan Ridgway from Walla Voodoo found out that I was having this little art show.
Okay.
And he got so pissed at me. Stan Ridgway, Walla Voodoo, Mexican radio.
Yeah.
One of my favorite songs. And he got so pissed at me that I was showing their poster at that show. And it was just like, it was like my first little show. I was so proud,
Yeah.
And even though I designed a lot of their merchandise for years, he hated me, and he totally like just didn't want to talk to me, didn't nothing, but I still worked on all of their stuff because I worked with the merchandise.
Because you were dope, and
he was just like, no, why is he showing like he wanted, because these were all of his concepts or whatever, and I was just like, I was proud, to kind of show the stuff. Or
it wasn't about.
So him and I like always bumped heads for years.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was funny, but anyway, years later we ended up like
being cool.
Yeah, being cool or whatever. I think this was it was just kind of like. It was indirectly kind of like fighting with each other, but we never like would meet face to face. And I think finally when we met face to face,
it was like,
I think I put my like game face on, and then he was just like super cool about the whole thing, and he was just like hugs and kisses, like wanted to do some more work, and I was like, oh, what's a big fuss about?
Yeah, you're so chill.
Just squash it. Yeah,
not even like you're not even about the beef.
But anyway, doing all of these posters. I wanted to do posters for myself,
Yeah.
But at the time,
that's inspirational at that point.
Yeah, of course. So it was at the time, it was just like, like I was just, not just learning about screen printing, but knowing the costs for all this stuff. For it being, the size of the paper, needing screens for all this stuff, film for all this stuff, separations, all this whole thing, you know what I'm saying? And then it cost a small fortune to kind of produce all of this stuff, especially if
Tell me.
I didn't, wasn't able to sell any. I just wanted to do it.
Yeah, for the love.
So for me, the next best thing was, I had more time than money at that time, so I started cutting stencils and making my own art and my own prints out of stencils versus screen printing them, because I couldn't afford, if the design has 7 colors. I couldn't afford 7 pieces of film, 7 pieces of screens, whatever, and all that stuff. And it was just like, you know what? At least this way I have all the control. I could cut all these stencils I want and have like and still achieve the same look. And that's kind of what sparked this whole like mixed media pop art that I do.
I mean, it's amazing, dude. Like. The stenciling aspect, I mean, just the patience and the amount of time that it takes. I mean, I do stenciling too, but to the degree that you do with the layers you do and the shadows, and it's like on some other level.
Well, I recently, for my last show last year, I had about 30 pieces in that show. And was that
the one no, that's not the one I went to.
That's the one you missed, because you were having a show the same day. It was in like June or July last year.
Okay. That was my show in Highland Park, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So for that show, actually, I did like half like hand cut stencils, and the other half I had them lasered.
And hell yeah.
And a lot of people that are like hardcore stencil artists are like, anti, but you know what?
No.
I mean, I do graphics all day. You know what I'm saying? I've been doing graphics for over 20 years.
Yeah, you put in your work, dude. I'm not even.
I've cut so many stencils, and it's like my joints and my hands are killing.
It really takes a toll as an artist. The physicality of the work sometimes. Like I already know my mom got. I already know this. I even told myself this when I was 10. She got her glasses. She finally had to get glasses when she turned 40 or 42, I want to say. So I'm already like, I got to do my work now because I only got so many more years left where my eyes are just going to give out.
Oh.
And I'm going to be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Things just start breaking down, guys.
Getting old sucks. You know what?
Totally. It sucks for that, but I actually feel more like, I still freak out about stuff real shit that happens or whatever, but I also feel like I can always ask myself, like, for the most part, 99.9%, have I been through worse shit? Yes. And because of my experience and the wisdom that I have from what I've gone through, I know that it's going to get better. And I think when you're a youngster, everything that happens to you, you feel like is like the worst thing in the world because you've never experienced or had that knowledge or had that time to understand that it's going to pass. But because I've gone through it 20,000 times, I'm like, this shit sucks, but like, I'm going to be fine.
Yeah, well, it's always...
So that's kind of a gift.
Yeah, it's always something different, you know? And right now I'm having issues with my eyes. It's just like, you know what, now, I'm in my 40s now, and it's like I recently, in the last couple of years, I started... You know, I wear my regular glasses. I'm not wearing them now. But now I'm using the little readers, you know, to kind of like look at the...
Yeah.
Even because I'm on the computer all day long, you know, like I said.
And that's another thing. That's another added to your... Yeah.
Not just the computer all day long, but then it's just like you're in front of your phone all day too, and it's just like,
Dude, and we don't even talk about that, like how the screen time and the phones are going to impact all of us. Like, we're just going to become these, like... That's why the aliens have big heads and these big-ass eyes and no sex glands. Sorry, guys. I'm telling you guys, it's we're getting there. We're just gonna be these pods that like live and breathe, but like are not even. We're all gonna look. That's why they all look the same with the big heads and the eyes, because our eyes have to be because of all the crazy computers and the. I'm just saying we're evolving. I know we're at some crazy level.
You know what?
I trip out. All I'm saying is that I feel like our bodies are gonna have to evolve to all the things that are happening. Technology-wise, brother, I'm serious. You're laughing now. We're gonna be dead. This shit's happening.
I agree with you.
I
agree with you. I just don't think about it that far.
I do, because I'm like, what is gonna happen to our eyes and our everything, our ears and all the things because of everything that the internet.
Well, whatever does happen is
we're like, you're gone. We're gone. It
won't affect us in our lifetime.
They'll be watching this YouTube podcast for like 2080.
They're like, you know what? She was right.
She was right, that girl.
Yeah.
That's true. And then my head's gonna be frozen, so I'll come back. No, kidding. Never mind. Let's go. Sorry, I get all crazy.
No,
anyways,
hey, that's all good.
So your eyes.
No. So that's it. Yeah. Now I'm using these like little readers. I feel like an old man, you know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Well, the funny thing is, you know what? That speaking of like being an old man, it's like. So when I first got into the industry, I was like, I was every job I had, I was always the youngest.
Yeah,
guy. I was always the youngest guy
I used to be the youngster
in my department. It was just like, it's like
all
my coworkers and all like production managers or art directors.
All impressed.
They were all like older than me, and I was always like the youngest guy. And the funny thing is, where I'm working at now, I'm the oldest guy in my department. Well, not really. I'm not the oldest guy. I'm one of the oldest guys, and it's like, and I'm working with like a lot of millennials, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just
that's very interesting. My best friend in San Francisco, she's a graphic designer too, for a really pretty big company, and she's always talking about how she's always working her ass off, just trying to like stay up, because these millennials are they're just there, like they're there, and you know she's just always trying to be the best and keep pushing, because like when you're a graphic designer, if you're like over a certain age, it's like it's rare. It's like hard to find that, or they're like on some other crazy, like they're no longer doing the graphic design aspect, they're doing something else and within a company. But she always talks about how she's always around all these millennials, and they just like are so different in their ways of. It is true, dude.
Yeah, no, she's right, and you know what? It's just like all the different companies that I've worked at, you know, was always like now it's like a lot of my co-workers or like young millennial co-workers, I've always like mentored them, you know what I'm saying? I've always, you know, taught them techniques. You know what? It was like one of these young girls that used to work with us, she quit to do her own thing. She was really good. She was at she went to Otis, and she has a master's in graphic design.
Oh wow.
And I sat next to her and I mentored her and I helped her out with a lot of stuff, taught her a lot of little techniques and everything. And when she left to do her own thing. And she's doing pretty good right now. You know, she's a hard worker and everything. And she left me a little note, and I saved it. And it said, you know, hey Germ, you know, it was great working with you. You know, I think I learned more sitting next to you I think no. She said, I think I learned more sitting next to you than I did in my 8 years or 4
What a
years,
great
whatever
compliment.
in
I would keep
college.
that.
And I was like, oh, that's awesome. You know, it was just like, wow, good. I'm happy I had some like impact or influence over this person. You know what I'm saying? And she could take the techniques that I showed her, you know, and use them, you know, with her own stuff or whatever, or next job. You know, and I respect that. I remember being like the young guy that didn't know all these techniques or whatever. And I've had, since I'm self-taught, I've had all these interactions with people that have gone to college and you know, and have been totally rude, and they'll ask it like, hey, how did you do that? Like, that's super cool, whatever.
Yeah, they don't want to share.
You know what? I've gotten this answer.
Yeah.
Oh, well, my parents didn't pay for all this school for me just to give you the answer right away. And I was like, fuck, all right, well, sorry. I'm sorry for asking.
They got chips.
And you know what? And after that
chips.
Experience, I was like, you know what? I'll never do that. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
yeah.
Even though
never be that person.
I worked my ass off to learn everything and
you
teach
hustle.
myself. Like I have no problem like sharing, you know, knowledge with anyone. You know what I'm saying?
No, and that's why you're on here, dude. Because I think there's a certain degree of, I've said this before, humility and being humble and being able to share the wealth of the people that are open. Because when you share, you know, you give, you get it back. You know, you don't do it for the intention of getting anything back, but you're not gonna not want to help other people on their journey. You know, would you say that the graphic designer's pace is very? Do you find that challenging now? Just you were talking about the millennials, and you know, it's very much, the millennials are very much connected to sort of like the IT and the sort of like forward movement of the evolution of where we're going in terms of like the internet and technology. And I feel like graphic design always goes hand in hand with kind of the future changes of art and the way that we create the world now. I mean, everything is on the internet. So you're always on the internet. You're always working on computers, and that's the tool that you utilize. Have you found that being a challenge now, like in terms of just
a challenge for me? No, because I'm like a creature of habit. You know, it's just like, but so when things change, I don't adapt well. But you know what? If I have to learn this new thing, you know, this new like upgraded software or whatever with new, you know, whatever, it's like you have to always stay up to date. You know, and one of the things I remember when I was in charge of the art department for this company I worked for years ago, and I think I had like maybe our department, it was probably about 4 or 5 of us, and I had a few girls in there that were just straight from school. And they would always ask me if there was an easier way to do this.
Something.
And I said, you know what? I don't know. You know, because it's like I don't have that, you know, I didn't go to school for graphics. I just taught myself. So I know what I know at that time, you know. And my answer would always be like, you know what? I don't know if there's an easier way to do this. This is the way I'm doing it.
Yeah.
If you find out an easier way or learn an easier way to do this, share with me, because I'd like to know. But in the meantime, we got to do it the hard way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And you know, it was just like so. I feel like there's always an easier way to do things. You just have to learn how to do it that way. You know?
Yeah, and sometimes the easier way is not always the best way anyway.
And it's probably not the easier way.
No.
It's probably the way. It's like you have to master the way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And once you master it,
then
guess what? Then it's easier.
Then you can try to cut some corners. That's true, because you know how to do that. But yeah, absolutely, you gotta go through the struggle and hustle up for sure, for sure. Would you say now though, where you're in the field you're in now, like if you've seen the design, because you're a huge graph design person, I think organically, how do you feel about kind of where it's gone and where like it is now in comparison to kind of where you were?
You know what? Organically, what do you mean? Like from creating stuff from scratch to like all digital now? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I guess it's a preference, you know, because it's like I work with a lot of so on top of my regular work, I still freelance somewhat, you know, and a lot of my old accounts or whatever are old school as well, you know what I'm saying, and they do the stuff, you know,
that they want you to do. They like what you do.
No, the way they work,
they
still work in the old school method.
Oh,
you know
I see.
It's like they'll sketch it from scratch. Maybe
That's me.
they'll use a light table, do whatever, and then they'll ink it, kind of like the way I do.
Me too.
It's like all the illustrations that I do. I'll sketch them, I'll ink them, then I'll scan them, and then I'll bring them into the computer. Now, a lot what's happening now, or what people are doing now, that I feel it's like they're skipping that whole.
Oh, all of it. No, all of it.
That whole process.
No,
and just
they're
going
straight up.
They're starting digital and ending digital. You know what I'm saying? And
all my graphic friends, I don't think anyone does what I do, except for you. Where I still use tracing paper sometimes and add layers. I mean, that's my method. But everyone else I know, even my writer, my illustrator, my graphic designer in a comic, he starts everything off sketching on an iPad. Yeah. That's dope. I mean, I think at some point I will get there. I just haven't had the time, to be honest.
And I feel like that. I want to do that.
Yeah, I want to do that too.
And you know what? I like to keep it traditional, and that's the same.
I'm a traditionalist too.
It kind of goes back to what I was saying. Cutting stencils by hand or whatever. Physically, yeah, I could cut a few stencils, but after your
28th,
the 5th or 6th or 7th layer, you know what? Physically, I can't do it.
Yeah, I know.
Luckily, you know what? My daughter, she knows my whole process. She's like my right hand.
Oh.
So she knows my whole process. So sometimes if I'm getting ready for a show, she'll like collage a whole canvas on her own.
That's so
You know what I'm saying? She'll I'll set up the stencils, all the layers she needs, and she'll cut them for me.
That's dope.
And she helps me out.
That's
a lot.
the youth, man.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
And when she finds out that I actually take some stuff to get, to save some time or anything, yeah, she doesn't want me to take. She doesn't want me to take anything.
No, that's a traditionalist.
To get lasered, but you know what though? So right now I'm like 50-50.
That's crazy.
And sometimes I even think about, maybe I should get a laser cutter.
I thought of that too. I don't need one.
But you know what? I'm just like, do I really want that extra expense? Maybe later. If I was, yeah.
Dude, I want a huge studio with like a laser cutter and like whatever, a paper cutter,
like an oversized printer,
everything. I want everything. Yeah, I just want a huge warehouse of everything. I want a corner with a DJ booth. We can play some jams.
You know what? All that's dope, and it makes sense if it's paying for itself, or if it's making you money. You know what I'm saying?
I know.
It's like for me. When I first started like doing graphics independently, it's like fortunately all the work that I had paid for all of my equipment. I didn't know, like getting into graphics. It's like I taught myself graphics, but once I left Kinko's, I didn't work there. My friend worked.
Yeah, I was all hooked up.
Once I couldn't go there or whatever, it's just like I had to. Luckily, this guy said, "Hey, come work for me." Blah blah blah. I'll get all the equipment. After I left there, like I needed my own equipment. And it's everything. But fortunately, everything paid for itself. It's like you need a laptop or an iMac or whatever it is, and guess what? You need a printer, you need a scanner, you need all these things. You need all these different.
Either that or you gotta hustle mad hard, and then at some point it's kind of hard. Like this fantasy. I mean, it's real. It's your reality. But like, I had a friend who worked here, and then I had a friend. Like that's when you're.
Well, no, yeah, I agree. You know what? Definitely take advantage of all your resources.
No, I know, but that's what you can do when you're young, so you kind of have that freedom. Like, I got a homie here. Like, that only lasts a limited amount of time, and that's like the universe giving you the gift of this opportunity so you can step up to the next level. Because there's always been, like, I got a homie who did this, and it's the reason why I got to be able to get a hookup. Like, but it's like a part of the growth, your growth.
Yeah, well, even now, even now, the way it's just like, even with just getting ready for an art show or getting ready for like designer con.
Yeah.
It's like you gotta utilize all of your resources.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like which one of your homies does this or has access to this?
Yeah.
How can not take advantage of them, but how can I use this to my benefit?
Yeah, I got you got me.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It's a reciprocal. That's what we do. What I really like about what you said about, and this has nothing to do with what you were talking about, but your daughter. How old is your daughter?
She's gonna be 28 next month. Yeah.
So
she's my older daughter.
Okay. But I really like what you said because I think the whole idea of her, it's traditionalist, like the traditional sense of like understanding like the proper way of doing something versus cutting corners. And I like that she was instilled with that idea of like, this is the proper process. You got to go through the struggle. But it's funny how the hardest part I think about getting older is like, I don't have those wants to like sit in my room and like listen to music and just sketch. You know what I mean? Like I used to do that. Like I would just play records and like my black light would be on, or the stars, my glow in the dark stars on the ceiling, and I would just doodle.
Well, I think
like that was such a like beautiful moment in time when I could like work all night on like some shit.
Well, those were the days for me anyway. Were the days that were the most inspiring.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's one of the reasons that's one of the reasons I got into DJing, was because it's like I love music, and I always surrounded myself since I was a teen. I always surrounded myself with say for example, I was gonna sketch this one night, right? And I get my sketchbook, I get my whole box of like designer markers that were in like a shoebox. I put them on the bed, and I'd like play some of my like favorite.
I like how the cassette player.
Yeah.
Playing the cassette.
Yeah, the cassette.
That was like.
It's like you know, it was like, you know, at that time it was like KRS-One, like Love's Gonna Get You, or it could have been like The Doors, you know, like a movie soundtrack, whatever, you know, whatever inspired me.
Those movie soundtracks were legit.
Oh hell yeah, those are like, those are the most inspiring to me. Like,
going off topic. One of my favorites was, and we can go back to it. Was it the dead presidents? What was the one with where they
Dead Presidents? The
white face? The Dead Presidents.
Oh yeah, that soundtrack's the shit.
I learned back then because I was a youngster. I didn't know what's up with James Brown, but they have the Payback.
Yeah.
And because of those soundtracks, you got to hear music that you normally wouldn't as like a really super youngster, you know. And I remember like the Payback was because of that freaking album, and because everybody was the Dead Presidents for Halloween that year. Everybody was hilarious. Like for 2 years straight, everybody was running around.
That was a dope soundtrack. We were just talking about Pulp Fiction. That's another dope soundtrack.
Yeah, for sure.
Like a lot of the Guy Ritchie movies, like what was it? Snatch, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Those albums.
Those are like real dope soundtracks. Valley Girl, dope ass soundtrack.
I don't know. I don't think I've heard that.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
All right, I need it.
If you're into like the '80s, a little.
Of course. Well, everything, but yeah.
I like all good music.
Yeah. Anyway, so go back.
Anyway,
so we're pushing the cassette player.
Yeah, pushing the cassette player. It's like, you know, I'd surround myself with all the inspiration or whatever, like say Graffiti magazines at the time, or like Herb magazine at the time. Yeah. Whatever inspired me, all my markers, sketchbook, cassette deck, you know, and then and just not computers.
I know.
I don't know why I did that.
What are you doing?
That's what I do now.
That sounds
but no, you know, and then sketch and ink all night. You know what I'm saying? And those were the days where I had time to inspire myself. You know what I'm saying? And that's one of the reasons why I got into DJing, because I love music so much. So with always trying to inspire myself with music, I collected this like huge library of like, I think it's dope music, but it's stuff that I like. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, me too.
And then like a few years later, it was just like I got into DJing. You know.
So, going off into this other spectrum of your talent set, his skill set, is so what did the DJ world look like to you at that time?
So you know.
What years were that?
Actually, the DJing didn't come into within the last like 20 years. I wasn't I wasn't into DJing like. You're
not that old though, so I don't even know what you're like. The last 20 years.
No,
like,
I'm in my early 40s.
Yeah.
To mid 40s.
That's what I mean.
So anyway, so back in the day when like all my older cousins were DJs,
everybody.
I was the graffiti writer. You know what I'm saying? And that's all. Like after school we go to like Exodus. And they'd go flip through records or whatever. Maybe I'd get something that I wanted to play or whatever. But they would get it for their parties, party crew, whatever, you know. And at that time, I was just like, you know, spray cans, markers, you know, whatever, stickers, you know. And I never collected the way they did for DJing because that wasn't my thing, you know. But later, like creating this huge library of stuff that I personally like. One of my old friends who was like a hardcore DJ, one day I was just kind of like, I brought him a bunch of music and I said, hey, you know what, here's some of my favorite music, do me a favor and put a mix together for me, you know. And he's like, oh, this is great stuff, like, yeah, I'll do it, you know. He's like, well, what do you want? And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, well, here, this is the DJ system, play what you like, here's how you use it, you know.
So you started messing with it.
And and he's like, yeah, he's like, put the songs together, put the tracks together that you like, and then we'll put it together. And I said, oh sure. And I guess like that day, 2 hours later, he's like in the next room, and he kept coming in, and he was like shaking his head, and I'm like, what? Like finally I stopped, and I'm like, what's going on? He's like, dude, he's like, you got a lot of fucking dope music. He's like, why don't you DJ? And I'm like, oh, because I don't DJ. He's like, dude, you should DJ. And I'm like, oh, I was like, he's like, here, now try this. So we ended up like putting a couple of like mixtapes together or whatever, and he kind of encouraged me to do it. And he was DJing like every nightclub.
What year was this?
This was
or years window.
Probably like maybe late 90s.
Oh, okay. So it's still early.
Late 90s.
It was still the good times were rolling.
Yeah, and then finally. So then I go with him. I started digging, and I started really organizing all my shit. I never did. I just wanted to play and listen to shit that just inspired me, And then, and one day he's like, you know what? He's like, I'm taking you tonight. You're gonna go with me. We was at the Opium Den in Hollywood, on Hollywood and Vine. He's like, he's like, you're gonna open up for me, and I'm like, fuck, what? Really? He's like, yeah. He's like, you're gonna open up for me.
That's awesome.
And I was like, oh, and I was so nervous, but it was the best feeling ever.
It is.
It was the best feeling ever.
It's so fun.
And I was like, wow, you know what?
So this was all vinyl sets too.
Earlier, and then right after that, the CDJs came in, and that made it a lot easier.
Yeah.
And it was just, so it was like both. At the time, we were mixing like vinyl and CD,
Yeah.
So that was like, so just like graphics, and like it's just like I just kind of like snowballed into being a graphic designer, and being, it being my career and working in the apparel industry. Same thing with DJing. It was like I kind of like just snowballed right into it and started like DJing with him, DJing parties, DJing clubs, DJing like events, and then like throwing my own parties. And it was just like, that was a whole other thing. And it was all because of the love of music. Now, I don't really DJ anymore.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I have the energy to do it. I don't have the energy to stay up all night and go to work the next day
Word.
the way I used to like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, And or go to a party, set all the shit up, and then break down at the end of the night, and then we'll go rock a party, and then break it. And then it's just like, who has the energy for that? I don't, If that's not,
Well, and now, I mean, the kids roll in with their laptops, and it's like easy peasy.
You know what? There's a lot of DJs that are anti-Serato, and they're purists, kind of like the stencil. They're like you know what? You want to be a purist and you want to cut your stencil, but guess what? I'm getting ready for an art show, 30 pieces. Mm-hmm. I can't.
Business, yeah.
Physically, I can't do it. You know what I'm saying? Same thing. It's just like, there's purists that all these like vinyl guys, they hate.
If they can do it, good for them.
They hate,
they hate
Serato. They hate CD guys or whatever. But you know what? When Serato came in, I was like, wow, that's fucking dope. If I just take a laptop and take this, and I still have access to my library and more, like, that's dope.
No, I hear you. I think I struggle a little bit, only because I think I do have purist tendencies. Only because I do feel like I hear the difference of the sound.
Of course.
And purists respect the difference in the vinyl. Like, you can hear it. You can physically hear. And you can hear it with.
Not just that.
It's too clean sometimes. Like, it's like you want to hear the sound when you drop the needle on the record. There's something about that. There's certain albums that were recorded that way, and certain ways of mixtapes and tapes where you can actually, or one of my favorite things is when you hear DJ mixes from like the 90s and 2000s from swap meets. And you hear like, Richard Humpty Vision doing a mix of house music, and you can hear the fucking record skip. And something about that understanding that was a real experience. Not only did he take a vinyl, but he's playing it, and we're hearing the actual moment that a record skipped in a live situation, a live recording. I have like a lot of respect for that.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I know. I'm not saying you don't. No. I'm just coming from
I understand what you're saying.
My purist tendencies of being kind of a dick like that, but I really feel that way.
No, you're right.
But I do. But what I would love is wanting to pull up a track that I don't have and play it because I'm vibing on some tip and I want to go down another route. Well, I can't do that when I have vinyl.
That's the thing for me.
Yeah,
it's just like, you know what? It's like my vinyl collection is nothing like my either CD or maybe MP3 collection. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're all different.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely,
what I'm saying? So,
absolutely. I get that.
So yeah, I would love to be able to just rock a party with all vinyl or whatever. But you know what? When you get to, what I learned, you get to a party, you don't know who's gonna be there. You know what I'm saying? You don't know when you gotta change it up, and you don't.
Dude,
and that's a whole other. That's a whole other.
And back in the day, I'm crazy. I used to look back, like I used to bring in like crates and a freaking bag, 2 bags by myself. I used to walk into these backyard boogies in Compton and Watts and all this shit, and I don't know who's there, and I have at least $200 worth of merch, just like walking free shit. I never got taxed. Nothing ever happened to me. But I used to always be the one like driving everyone to the park. And not only was I the DJ, I was picking everyone up with my mom's car. Sorry, Mom. With my mom's car and like going to these events, coming deep with all of our stuff. And then like I always felt like I could never party, which was actually probably more of a blessing. So, because I had to keep trucha. Like I had to watch my shit. And then if I put my shit in my car, still, we're in the hood. Like, people are going to tax you, you know? And I heard all these horror stories from people telling, you know, walking up to the event and getting taxed. And
taking crates, yeah.
Taking crates, or we had a party one time at brother's house, and it was one of our like annual parties. It was like it was the big kahuna. It was like the second year of our big party. And I remember we stayed up till like 3, 4, 5 in the morning or whatever. I went to bed and these guys were hanging out. They were DJs. They left. They fell asleep in their cars. And when they came back, all their stuff was gone. And this was at our house. And they were like, who was there? They were trying to... And I was like, I went to sleep. And I felt bad for them because there were people there. But like, you don't know. Like... You don't leave your shit behind, you know.
You know what? I've always been.
But that's hundreds of dollars worth of, and the memories and the energy and the time you put in for all that.
Not just that.
That's crazy.
I know that. You know what I'm saying?
Word.
But imagine showing up to a party where there's like you're one of like maybe 5 DJs for the night, and you go and you leave your DJ bag at the DJ booth.
Yeah.
And guess what? Now like Serato days, you have your needles in there, your slip mats, you have your Serato box, and your laptop, which is like a few $1,000s worth or whatever. I've at first I was just like, oh, really like careless, or didn't even think about it. Like, oh, put my DJ bag with the rest of the DJ bags, and then go to the bar, you know, enjoy the party until it was ready for my set. But no, you know what? Later it was like some parties were kind of sketchy, and I was just like, you know what? Fuck that. I can't like just DJ bag on me all night.
Yeah,
you know? And
you gotta carry your shit and watch it.
No way.
Well, yeah, and I think that's what I think for me. It was just like I think one of my last gigs, like I was DJing at the Grand, and I remember it was like when they had like the salsa room. I don't know if they even have it like that anymore, or if it's still there. I don't even. No one talks about the Grand anymore. I'm like, is the Grand even still cracking? And they had the salsa room and the hip hop room, whatever. And I just remember like showing up by myself and having to carry just all these crates. No, I mean it was like, well, you know, it was like 3 crates in a bag or whatever. And it was right. It was kind of right when they were doing CD stuff, and you know the bags and the crates and stuff. And I just remember I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I was probably like 27. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like I can't carry this shit around by myself anymore. It was like really annoying. Like. You know, and then I remember I was in the hip hop room and I was DJing, and some girl comes up to me and she's like, do you have any Britney Spears? And I was like, oh shit. And I was like, we're in the hip hop room, and I'm just like, no. She's like, oh, well, do you have any Christina Aguilera? I'm like, no. And I was like, I don't even want it. Like, I can't do commercial clubs anymore.
No, I never wanted to do that. You know what I'm saying?
That's why.
And then the thing is...
That's why I let it go, too.
And this is one of the things that I want to say is that, you know what, it's like I never wanted to be a DJ. I kind of fell into it because I love music, you know? And when you start getting these crazy requests stuff that you don't want to play, and that it's like, you know what, that takes the fun out of it.
That's why, for me, I think that was my first, I was like, the Grand was like someone offered it to me. So I said, okay, fuck it. I want to play the Grand, like, fuck it. But I didn't realize what that meant until I actually did it. And then I went, no, I'm good. And that was it. I kind of retracted. I went back into my hole, and I just play wherever I want to play for my family or for my homies or my friends. Like I never took it to that level where I was hired professionally anymore, because I realized it's like you. For me, it was the love. It was the love of playing music and playing what I wanted. It's a selfish thing. I wanted to play what I wanted to play. And the only reason why it worked when we were youngsters was because I was all about the house music. Back then, it was all about the Wu-Tang and the hip-hop, and I had all that shit. So, of course, I'm going to show up. I'm going to play what you guys want me to play, but I'm playing what I want to play. And the whole... And I love the house music. I used to play so much house music. The early house music scene was... It was so fun.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
It's like the best. Like, I'm so glad I have all those vinyls. Like, it just makes me feel... I'm very happy that I went through that experience. And back then, we were getting paid. You just showed up. Like, your name was on a flyer, if that. I mean, sometimes it was like... thrown together in a week and call the party line and figure out where you're going to go. You could just show up sometimes like, hey, can I get on? And there was a list. Or it'd be like, hey, you got next. I was like, all right, well, let's do it. Like, yeah,
those are the fun days. You know what I'm saying? When it was fun, But now I can't do that now. Like I already like.
Well, they don't have this. That no longer exists. Kids nowadays, what we had, they will never have what we have. We used to be able to have backyard boogies all night or until the cops came. Oh shit, they're getting raided. Let's call the party line. Yeah. Oh shit, there's another one. You know what I mean? Oh, let's go down to Adams, another party. Like, none of that can happen. We used to party in downtown parking lots, like on top of, freaking those buildings, MacArthur Park, like park in the back and go down these stairs, and there was a whole party going on. Like, none of that can happen nowadays. It's too PC now.
Yeah, I don't know.
And the kids are probably scared to do it now.
I mean,
there's a fearlessness that
I miss those days. Even though I really don't party or go out much anymore. And I'll do some events or whatever, but man, I do miss those days. Like the homie Daz and them, they used to do like chocolate bar. Like those were the parties. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know.
It's just like
I know Daz because of Carbon. Okay. And I think Elements. I think he used to play at Club Elements, and I think I was under 18. I used to sneak in, and I feel like I used to remember him there. I don't know. I will ask him that. But yeah, I love Daz. Daz is like one of my favorite DJs.
Daz is one of my favorite DJs. Yeah. And he's a homie, so yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing. And I remember when I first started to get to know him, I used to be obsessed, kind of still am, with Tony Touch. And like, because I'm more East Coast. I love East Coast.
Oh, that and you know what? I love the East Coast. Tony Touch,
Tony Touch is
fun.
But the Peacemaker Part 2 album is my favorite, and I don't know what happened where he found that out, my favorite song. And I swear, every single time I used to walk into Carbon, he used to play my song. Like, I'd walk in and then he'd play, and I'd be like, "Oh, homie, I'm here!" Like it was like the love, Like, he knew that was my jam,
Real dope.
Yeah, I love Daz is dope. I can't believe how many years I've known Daz.
I just saw him at the. He was at Smorgasburg. They did the beat swap meet. I think it was like a few weeks ago, maybe last month.
I gotta go to Smorgasburg, LA.
Yeah. Oh, you haven't been there?
No, I have. No, I've been there, but I haven't been there for
beat swap meet.
No, I haven't.
Yeah,
I went for another event. We went to an art show. Oh, I thought you went with me. Anyways, yeah.
I don't know. I was just there. It was probably about a month ago, and Daz had a booth there, and I got some records from him. And then, but it was the same day they were doing this like graffiti wall. And I think like Hex.
They had a graffiti wall?
Yeah, it was like this. It was like the graffiti corner at like Beat Swap Meet.
It's at the Arts District, right? At the Row.
No. It's Smorgasburg. It's over where American Apparel is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's called the Row.
Oh, it is?
It's called the Row.
But that's not the art district.
We did go for the art show. It's on the outer skirt. Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay.
It is. It's at the very, very... You're right, it's not, but it kind of is.
Yeah,
it's the Row. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But
anyways, yeah.
Yeah, but it was good. It was good to see him there. I haven't talked to him in a few months, but yeah, he's good, and we got some records from him.
Yeah, he sounded like he's got some like hype events like coming up. He was talking... I feel like he kind of DJs. He selectively DJs now. I know that. So, when I hear that he's going to have some stuff coming up, I try to, like, show up when he has, like... Yeah, I went to... Where did he go? He was doing a small set at... Right here on York in Highland Park. He had, like, a really cool set, and I shut up for a minute. And it's good seeing him. Like, I haven't seen him in a minute.
Yeah.
He kind of pulled back. And I think he was doing post-production and stuff like that, too.
I think he works in...
Right?
He does some kind of, like, IT stuff or whatever. I'm not too sure what he does. But
so how do you know him? Was it just through the DJ scene?
Yes and no. I remember him from well, pretty much the guy that put us together was my homie Chris Vargas, who he used to promote a lot of events back in the day, back in like the street team days and all that stuff.
Cool.
And he's the one that introduced me to like Chocolate Bar and Firecracker and all these events, from back in the day. And so he moved away to San Francisco for a few years, came back, and then and he's really good, or was really good friends with Daz, and then he put us all kind of like together, and I was like, we were going to their parties, I was designing some of their flyers, and it was all love. It was like just really good. So I got, and Daz became like a big fan of my art as well. So the funny thing is that you go into Daz's, I don't know what his new place looks like, but he has like a small like Germizm gallery in his place.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, he came. We invited him over one day, and he like bought a bunch of prints off me, and it was just like he's mad cool. He even DJ'd. We had this maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. We did this print release party when it had to be at least 5 years ago because we did it when Richard Eduardo was still alive. We did a print release party with was Richard Eduardo, Boy George, and myself.
Wow.
And we did it at Modern Multiples over at Richard Eduardo's studio.
Yeah.
And Daz DJ'd that party.
Oh, that's so cool.
So that was pretty cool. And there's video of Boy George dancing like in front of the DJ booth, like and Daz.
Oh, what a great!
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
So
well, big ups to Daz. What's up, Daz?
Daz is a homie.
He is a homie.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, where are you at now in terms of like? I think you have some shit happening. I feel like you've been having some shows.
Well,
you've been getting it in.
Yeah, well, you know what? Last year was really busy for me. You know what I'm saying? It's like I had a bunch of stuff going on. I had that solo show in June over at State Gallery, and then I did Designer Con. So it was just like those are my two big like.
Are you doing this year?
I'm not doing it this year.
Okay.
You know what? It was like that was actually the first time I ever
did it.
Like vended at like an event or a convention or whatever.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I was never really set up for vending. You know, I'm not.
It's
I'm not
a whole setup.
Yeah, I'm not
it's a whole state of mind.
I'm not a big vendor. You know, it's like when I have shows or whatever. Maybe I have some merch or whatever. But
no, it's a whole other animal.
But
sure.
But yeah, it was it was a awesome experience. You know, I got an amazing booth. I was right next door to Shag. You know, right behind Spoke Art.
Shag's my favorite.
You know, well, I had a show at Shag's Gallery in Palm Springs.
You did?
Yeah, years ago. Yeah, I had a show there. And it was with a lot of my tour posters and stuff and a lot.
Well, I mean, I guess it's mid-century modern, so I guess you kind of fit in that in a strange. Was that a reason, or
no?
I just feel like that graph cleanly, like your clean
well,
style.
because I was doing this project with we did this Boy George remix project.
Oh, okay.
So it was like we were doing this collab with Richard Eduardo,
That's
Boy
so
George,
cool.
and our friend of ours that Sid. He used to do like Coachella and all these big events. He's a huge like promoter. He's good friends with Shag.
Okay.
And he kind of put this whole thing together for us, and we had this show there, and it kind of coordinated at the same time when Culture Club was on tour, and they were doing a show somewhere near Palm Springs.
Okay.
So we did this like little like three-way group show at Shag's Gallery.
Wow,
in
that's
Palm
so
Springs.
cool.
And that was pretty dope. Yeah, some of the band members came from Culture Club, and it was there with Shag. It was super cool.
That's so cool. I
So
love Palm
coincidentally, when I got my booth at Designer Con last year, it was right next door to Shag. So it was
That's
just
so
like, yeah, it
funny.
was just like my booth was here, like Shag was just right there.
Dang, that's
so
crazy.
it was pretty cool, yeah.
Well, let me ask you this: in all of the stuff that you've been working on, what have you found has, like, within the art concept of the graphic design, what has been like your biggest struggle, would you say?
Time, because it's just like, you know, I work full time, you know, and you know, then got a family, got a home life, you know, like this whole, I went from like East LA to like, you know, this whole domestic life in you know in Walnut.
Like what?
And then, you know, I work for a corporate company, you know.
Wait, so exactly where did you grow up in East LA?
East LA, I grew up right, you know where the original King Taco is?
Yeah.
Right on 3rd and 4th?
Mm-hmm.
I grew up like 2 blocks down from there.
Oh, wow.
So I was born and raised in East LA. I was born in Santa Marta. And I went to Humphreys Elementary, went to Griffith Junior High School, Garfield High School, and I went to Eli.
You went to Garfield.
Yeah.
Nothing but trouble.
Oh.
And at Garfield, that's
Yeah.
crazy. All right, so...
So anyway, I'm sorry, what was the question?
The struggle.
Oh, the struggle.
Time.
So now working full time.
Yeah.
You know, and then like I was telling you earlier, working on the house. It's like owning a house is like. It's like a never-ending project. It's like every weekend, and you know, I'm like do the domestic thing now. You know, it's just like Costco on the weekends, whatever. Like family dinners, stuff like that, coordinating shit. At home. But the kids are all big now. So back then, like years ago, it was always like soccer for my daughter or whatever.
I was
being
like, dad.
Yeah,
dad of the
I was
year.
like, I was the ref. All these little girls or whatever. Now they're big kids. My daughter's going to Cal Poly, Pomona.
Yeah.
And but anyway, so the struggles that I have now, it's even though the kids are like really independent now, and it's like, it's time. It's time. It's just like I still want to be like really active. Like I don't really DJ as much as I used to. As much as I'd like to. Now I'm just like DJ at home. But luckily I have my home studio where I do all my painting. And we have a spare bedroom that I use as my office where I have all like my whole graphic like computer set up and everything, and my whole like reference library. But it's the time. It's just like you work full time. The last thing you want to do is like I'm on the computer all day, and then come home and get back on the computer.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the struggle.
And then, or let alone like get in the studio. When I'm in the studio painting, I'll paint out all night long. If it's a weekday, and I'm working, sometimes like getting ready for a show, it's just like shit. You know what? It's just like the engineering and creating everything just for a stencil piece, all the layers, it all depends on like the substrate, and what you're gonna put it on.
Absolutely.
And everything has to be constructed around that. So it's just like, it's not like, I'm not one of those like artists that I'm gonna grab a brush and I'm gonna start painting this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be up all night painting. No, this is like carefully like designed so I can have like this layer stencils, and there's dry time in between.
Yeah.
Especially if I want to do something a little more fancy and add some little extra paint here and there. It's just like the dry time sucks. So the main struggle is time for everything.
Where do you find? I actually didn't think about this. It just hit me. Where do you find your inspiration for your pieces?
It depends. Like I mean, I'm more known for all of my portrait work, and
you got some great females actually.
And well, it's maybe 99% female portraits, and it's just because I think it's beautiful, And,
yes,
and,
we are.
And I want and I can't, I don't see myself painting anything else unless it's a commission job or if it's like I just did Prince and a couple of like tribute pieces, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Bowie and all these different things, all the different pop art,
Totally.
But inspiration is just like throughout the years I've just created this library, and what I'd like to do is actually I'd like to create my own references, out of like taking my own photos. And you know what? A few years ago, for a show I had not a few years ago, but a show that I had in 2012, I actually I had a whole photo shoot. I hired some models. I had a photographer.
Oh, wow.
And I had like a hair and makeup person.
Oh, wow.
I had another friend of mine who kind of like stylized the whole thing. And this is for a show that I had in 2012 called Our Daily Bread, and it was kind of a tribute to like the Mexican calendar girl.
Oh,
and
wow.
So I used these two models, and we got these amazing images, and I painted. So I painted 12 portraits. And then I also made a calendar. So it was like, it was a whole, because since it was a tribute to the Mexican calendar girl. So I made
Are you Mexican?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of course.
And I,
Lonnie.
Yeah.
You didn't know that?
But anyway, I ended up making a calendar out of it and everything, and it was a whole show and stuff like that. Yeah,
that's exciting.
But I want to do more stuff like that. But I've sometimes, it's just like I love always hunting for like reference material. I'll go to like different bookstores.
Yeah, I miss doing that.
Back in the day, like before, like pre-internet, we used to go to like bookstore. Hennessy Ingalls, all these different like dope art bookstores, and it's just like, and I would always like this was my formula. It was one new magazine a week and one new book a month.
That's amazing.
That was like my limit, because I was always and so I would go to the bookstore, I would grab like a stack of magazines, a stack of books, I flip through all of them, and I'd be like, this is the book I'm getting this month, and these are the magazine I'm getting this week, and I do the same thing every.
Yeah, we used to do that. We used to buy magazines like.
Yeah. So my like home like reference library is pretty big. So a lot of the like dope images from back then. Unfortunately, you know what, and I hate to say it, is like a lot of these images that I use are like ripped off from like photographers, and I don't really give any photographer credits because I don't know where it comes from.
Yeah,
and
like
that's
just pulled it
and
from.
that's my bad. But you know what? It's not. I'm not making a ton of money off this stuff. And you know what? This is like my tribute to them, or celebrating their amazing images. You know. What I'm
Yeah,
saying?
it's hard. I think it's pulling from the old stuff too. Like it's a lot easier now. You can like kind of figure it out faster. But back then, you should just pull shit and like. But like once you recreate it, it's not going to be in its exact same form.
No, of course not.
And I'm the same way. Like I pulled stuff, found stuff, and then done my little shit on it, and then it doesn't really even look like what it used to look like anymore.
None of these images, or I would say most of these images,
nothing's original anymore. By
No,
the
of course
way,
not.
nothing is original. Everything is a take on something else, take on something else, take on something else. And once I realized that, I said, okay, someone else's interpretation of that. I'm not going to feel bad for what I'm taking from that, because they took from that and that and that and that. Like it's just a chain that never ends.
Yeah.
So I hear you. No, I totally hear you. So, final question, I guess, is because of what you said of kind of like where you're at and the things that you used to do. What is it now like? Because you're on here because you're here because I feel like you have tried your best from day one to try to be ahead of the game and this is first among equals. So it's how do you interpret that in your life, and how do you think that you're being the best you can be in what you're doing with what you have now?
How do I interpret that? I feel the way I interpret it is you know, I think at the end of the day it's a hustle, you know. Everything you do is a hustle, you know. It's a hard balance between my life that makes my world go round and my personal life of like my creative side with music, art, and I feel like you have to find your thing that makes your world go round. You know, for me it's like my job, my family, you know what I'm saying? And you know, if I didn't have that couldn't fuel all of my creative shit, you know. When it comes to art and music. If I didn't have that, none of this other creative like Germizm stuff could happen. You know what I'm saying? And that's the hard part. I feel like some people want to do their hobby as their full-time gig, but when reality hits or kicks in, it's like, shit, you know what? I need to do the reality first to feed my passion and my dream, you know?
Yeah.
So I just feel like you gotta hustle twice. You know, and that's my thing, you know, and as I was saying, like last year, it was just like my solo show was a lot of work, you know, and then I think I kind of allow myself like two major things a year. My solo show last year, Toxicity, and then Designer Con. And that was it. Like done, did it, and it was great. And you know what? Without the art show, it wouldn't have been able to like fuel or finance Designer Con. You know?
Why did you call it Toxicity?
It was because of what I was going through at the time. It was a personal thing, and I felt like because of a lot of this toxicity I had in my life at that time, with work, family, friends, I had to cut a lot of that stuff out.
Yeah.
It's like bad energy to replace with good energy.
It's hard.
And it was just like that, cutting out all this negative energy, I was able to use that energy to fuel this whole art show. And that's why I call it Toxicity. It was kind of like my way to get away from this. And get away from this negative energy to fuel this positive energy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And this year, it's like what I have coming up. It's like I'm working with, I'm in this collective called the Allied Forces.
Okay.
And we just had a group show at the Bruce Lurie Gallery in Culver City. It was pretty dope. And right now we're kind of like on the table with talking about doing a couple, like maybe 2 or 3 man show in Amsterdam. at a gallery in Amsterdam, but we're also working up to doing, for sure, 100% we're going to Art Basel this year.
Damn, that's what's up.
That's with Allied Forces, with the homie Kyle Harper, is an amazing artist. He's curating this whole thing.
How exciting!
I'm so
happy for you.
This year that's kind of like what we're working for, and that's our goal. But no, it's already it's in the works right now.
So what's your goal for the end of the year? Is this your goal?
Yeah, Art Basel.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So Amsterdam is kind of like we're talking about it, but I don't know if I could do both.
Yeah.
You know, so we're kind of juggling, you know, what our priorities are, but I know for sure they're both happening. I just don't know if I'm going to be part of the Amsterdam show yet because of Art Basel.
Okay.
For me, I think it's one or the other.
Okay.
But Art Basel, it's done.
It's done, son.
So yeah, if I could squeeze in Amsterdam, that would be dope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If all of us could squeeze in Amsterdam,
yeah,
we would all be there.
But no, I'm also part of the homie Pablo Damas, Sick.1. We do a lot of work together, and I'm part of there's a traveling show right now. With him, it's called The Art of Manual Labor, and it was at a gallery in Riverside, and right now it's at a gallery in Pomona, and I think in June it'll be at a gallery in Highland Park. So it'll be like an opening reception for it.
Oh, that's exciting.
And I'm creating some new work for that right now. Yeah.
What is the new work focused on?
It's kind of like a...
Because you said toxicity was kind of a cleansing, clearing.
So
what is it now, and do you even have an idea for what the name is, or sort of a focus?
Well, right now, what
if you can share.
No, of course. There's nothing's a secret, because you see what my whole aesthetic is, you know, and it's all like
totally
like Germizm, you know, and I do a lot of, if you look into like the backgrounds, a lot of my collages and stuff, and it's all like kind of like Cold War propaganda.
It is.
But indirectly, it's part of, like, you know, Germizm, germ warfare, toxicity, this whole thing. So it'll still have that same feel, but with the women's portraits, you know.
Okay. Would you say that that's like you juxtapose sort of this very harsh idea, this very like propaganda thing, with something a little softer to kind of give it an edge?
That's what it totally is.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
It just softens up something that regularly could be seen as a little bit more pointy and harsh.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what it exactly is.
See?
You get it. Yeah.
No, I get it. Of course. How do you not get it? Well, okay, I'm sorry. There's probably people that don't get it. Yeah. But I get it, because I just think you're amazing. So
thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So, I guess really quickly. I'm just like so excited that you're here. So, I guess my final thought is, what do you think in the future? What is it that you're trying to relate to your audience? It's a big question. Ultimately, by your artwork, like a message.
Oh man, I feel, or what the message that I'm trying to relate.
Or even now, you know what I mean? Because I know the message back then versus a message now could be a completely different message.
No, you know what? It's the same message. It's all, and because that's all part of my aesthetic. You know what I'm saying? And what my whole like manifesto is.
Exactly.
And what Germizm is about. But I would say, without being redundant, you know, it's just stay creative, stay positive. You know, no matter how toxic your environment is, you know, there's some beauty that comes out of everything. You know, and I think that's the brighter side of everything, you know, and I truly feel that way, because it's like all the shit that everybody goes through, whether it's personally, professionally, whatever, you know what, at the end of the day, for me anyway, I mean, not that my message isn't for everyone, but this is just my message for myself that I can share, is that, you know what, at the end of the day, if I can still make something beautiful out of all of this craziness, like toxic bullshit, that's all that matters. You know what I'm saying? It's like coming out from just like the wreckage. You know what I'm saying? It's just like stick to your guns and stay true to yourself and just create the best that you can create, you know?
Aw, amen to that then. All right, well, thank you, Germizm, for coming to the podcast.
Thank you guys for having me.
This is This is a pleasure. This is a blessing. Where can we find you at? You want to do some plugs?
Yeah.
And some upcoming shows, maybe?
Well, I don't have actual dates for anything.
Okay.
But just the group show with Pablo Damas. He's curating it. It's the Art of Manual Labor. It'll be coming to Highland Park in June.
All right.
And then just the Allied Forces for sure will be. It's still on display over at the Bruce Lurie Gallery in Culver City.
Okay.
And you'll be seeing us at Art Basel at the end of the year.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
All
and
right.
then plug-wise though.
Plug-wise.
Just Instagram. It's just at Germizm. That's with a Germizm. And then my website, Germizm.com.
Yeah, so support the local legit OG artist here, Germ-Izm.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us at First Among Equals podcast. And
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. We'll check it next time. Cheers.
Cheers.
Peace.